Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Dio. I am the VP of Product at Life Science Nation. One of the things that I do is I'm in charge of our educational content. Joining me is my colleague Greg. Greg, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Mannix. I'm VP of International Business Development. I'm based in Europe. I'm also General Manager of Europe for Life Science Nation, which, as many of you know, is based in Boston. But we really have a global presence. And what we're going to talk about today is really a universal issue and is valid for any conference you attend anywhere in the world. If you're looking to partner with investors, licensing partners, strategic partners, et cetera. So, looking forward to sharing some information with you today. And please feel free to raise your hand or put any questions or comments in the chat, and we're happy to address those.
One of the big things that, is always an issue for any company attending a partnering event is always a lack of response, or not getting enough meetings, not getting enough traction. And it's always a question of why. There are many, many different things that can happen that can lead to that. Of course, we can't guarantee that you're going to get a lot of meetings, but what we can do is help you maximize your chances. And so, what we're going to be doing in this presentation is going over some tips and tricks that we've seen that really make a difference in the number of meetings that a company will get at a conference, and it can easily double the number of meetings that you end up getting. One thing I will also say is that if you reach out to us after this, we would be more than happy to help you craft your messages. So if it's something that you're interested in, help with, doing an initial first pass on the messages that you can send through a partnering platform, or actually even through cold emails, just reach out to us, send us your executive summary and your pitch deck, and we will send you back a template for some messages I can't guarantee they will be what you want to go with, but it will be a place to start.
Yep. And I would just add to what you said, Karen, that I would just add that we just finished our conference number 55, which means we've been doing this for a long time, and we've seen companies that are very successful getting meetings with investors, licensing partners, et cetera. And we've seen companies not be as successful. And we've done a pretty deep analysis of why that is.
Right.
And what we're going to recommend today is based on this experience we have, which goes back, what is it, 13, 14 years now that we started
Yep.
running the Resi conference. So
Yeah. The numbers
anyway.
don't lie.
So, brief intro to Life Science Nation. We are a company that helps bring investors and entrepreneurs together. And we do that in several ways. One way is through developing a very extensive database of investors and licensing partners. We've been doing this for about 15 years, and the database of investors, et cetera, is now about 4,000 companies strong, 4,000 investment firms from all around the world. And we make that available to entrepreneurs who are looking for money, because in order to be successful raising money, you need to have a target list of investors, and this is a very powerful tool for that. And we offer this as a cloud-based platform that you can access in several ways, including through an app, a custom app that we developed on Salesforce.com, so that you can use our tool, which we call it the campaign fundraising campaign management tool. You can use that on Salesforce, and it's much more than just a database with information about the investors. It's actually a tool that will help you manage your campaign much more effectively. Everyone, everyone we talk to uses a spreadsheet, right, to manage their campaign. It's just you use an Excel spreadsheet, and you have all of your investors there, and you try to keep track of everything. But there comes a point when you have hundreds of investment firms and thousands of contacts, you can't manage that on a spreadsheet efficiently. So this is something, and we'll be happy to show that to you if you're interested. And then there's the Resi conference. Everyone has heard of the Resi conference. We've been doing it for 14 years now. And as I mentioned, we just finished Resi conference number 55. So Resi is a unique conference. It stands for Redefining Early Stage Investment. And what's unique about it is that, and it has to do with this database of investors that we've been building over the past 15 years. But we get a very high turnout of early stage investors. That's something you don't find at other conferences. And believe me, I go to a lot of conferences, and finding early stage investors is the most challenging part. At Resi, we get hundreds of investors to attend. They're all looking for early stage assets, technologies, et cetera. And it happens 5 times a year. So we just finished our biggest conference in San Francisco during JP Morgan Healthcare Week. Next is Resi Lisbon, Resi Europe in Lisbon, taking place in March, the week of March 23rd. Then we'll be in San Diego during the Bio Convention in June, in Boston for Biotech Week Boston in September, and there will be another conference in December. The venue is not yet confirmed. Karen, do you want to speak on LSN Labs?
Absolutely. So a large part of what we do is also education. We work with a lot of first-time CEOs, and we see a lot of common uh, pitfalls, things that a lot of CEOs, especially those that have, are making the transition from being in the lab to being an entrepreneur. There are a lot of things that mistakes that are commonly made by a lot of different companies. So we've formed a body of education to help companies avoid these pitfalls. So we have recorded classes, we have an AI assessment agent that we use to help companies figure out where the gaps are, and where they need to work on to make themselves more appealing to investors. And then we'll do workshops like these or boot camps with regional organizations or incubators and accelerators to help educate and prepare people, because a lot of these places will start preparing people but won't completely prepare companies for the plunge into the deep end that is a full-fledged fundraising campaign. So we can help with that. And other than that, we also have a weekly newsletter that we do. Our CEO wrote a book, the Life Science Executives Fundraising Manifesto, which we will be happy to share a digital copy of after this. So,
We have someone asking for our contact information.
yep,
Yes, I'll put that in the chat.
absolutely. Yeah, so just to kind of put this in context, uh, in terms of where it fits into the full global roadshow, that what we call your fundraising campaign, a global roadshow. And the reason we call it this is because this is pretty much modeled on a roadshow that a company does when they're getting ready to IPO. Because it just because you're not getting ready to IPO doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to employ the same tools to make your fundraise successful, even though you're earlier stage. Because as everyone knows, ultimately, when you're in your own region, there will come a time where there's not enough funding for you and you'll have to go outside. So this is kind of our 10-step process for how a company should manage a fundraise. So we always say it all starts with the story. So investors want more than just the technology. And this is actually one of the biggest issues that a lot of companies have is they focus just on the technology. But the investors, especially in the earlier stages, are investing almost more in the team than they are in the technology because they know the technology is likely going to need to pivot in some way. There's always that risk. And so they want to know that they have a team that is capable of handling that and that they have faith in the team and in the person. So you want to start with your story. How did you get to this technology? What was your aha moment? What, have you been working on this for 20 years or whatever it may be? You need to frame it in that way. Make it personal, make it resonate with the investor because as much as an investor, invests logically, a large part of it is also gut instinct. And so you want to appeal to them on multiple levels and connect with them on multiple levels. Once you know what your story is, you put together your marketing collateral. And this is everything from your pitch deck, your executive summary, tagline, which is what we normally start with, followed by your elevator pitch, which is also good because we'll use the elevator pitch in a lot of instances as part of the messaging in your partnering events. Once you have your marketing collateral squared away, you want to get a global target list. Now, in our experience, you want somewhere in the 600 to 800 number of leads potentially to go after because those will quickly be filtered down based on, not a fit for various reasons, even if you're looking only for investors that look in your sector, your indication, your area, like they invest geographically where you're located. Even if you start off with a list of 600 to 800 investors that broadly cover that area and that category, some of them will be not a fit for various reasons, and so you want to start as broad as possible, and that number will very, very quickly dwindle down. So you want to make sure that your list is large and so that you will have more shots on goal as you get closer because fundraising is a numbers game. And as Greg mentioned, you need to have some sort of CRM, a customer relationship management tool, HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever it may be. If you can effectively manage your list of investor targets on an Excel spreadsheet, that means it's not large enough. And once you get to a point where it's large enough that you can't manage it in Excel, just get a CRM. There's a lot of them that are, relatively cheap, have some free options. So there you don't have to spend a lot of money, but it is a lifesaver. And then for a lot of people, we actually recommend getting someone to help with their outreach. And this is the sort of thing of, make it an intern or, find someone in the sciences who isn't sure that they want to go into research and wants to see what else exists outside the world of academia, or get an MBA student who wants to get some experience and hire them part-time. Give them the list of investors, give them your messaging templates, and have them go and do the outreach for you. Because that will make a huge difference. It's something that takes a lot of time, but isn't something that necessarily the CEO of a startup needs to do themselves. Because it's time consuming, but not difficult. And it's something that I think that for a lot of people, it helps to have someone else do it for them, schedule the meetings for them, and then you just go to the meetings and focus your time on moving your company forward because fundraising, it's a full-time job. And if you can hand some of that off to someone else, you'll be better off for it. And that's where you start the canvassing. As I said, it's a numbers game. So you want to reach out to these people multiple times. If they don't answer, just keep going. And then, if they do answer, then it's yes, no, maybe, future, whatever it may be. Keep going and keep tracking. And eventually you'll move on with these. And, part of the part of the way that you're going to be making connections is going to roadshows and partnering events. So you need a multi-pronged approach for getting in touch with these investors. That means emails, that means partnering events, that means networking opportunities, that means LinkedIn. All of these are different arrows in your quiver for how you can make contact. And each of them is important. We've known people that have finally made contact after 6 months and then ended up having a fruitful conversation. But it took 6 months to get of trying to get to that point. And so until you hear a no, you should keep going. And so then you want to also keep track of your metrics. That's where the CRM comes in. Do you get any referrals? Are there any follow-ups? How many of them end up going to a second meeting and then maybe even to an NDA? You want to keep track of all of this. It also helps you keep track of frequently asked questions. Do you need to change your marketing collateral because you keep getting asked the same questions over and over again? Or are you getting future opportunities because people are saying, well, I'm interested, but you're a little too early, so contact me when you hit your next round. And so then you have a really good lead for your next fundraise. And that's something that you want to make sure to keep track. And as I mentioned, you have to follow up. That is absolutely one of the ways that a lot of companies fall off because they do not follow up effectively. And for a lot of people, culturally, it seems rude. But the person that I mentioned that reached out over 6 months, the investor didn't even remember how many times that person had reached out over 6 months. He had a vague recollection that he'd heard of the company, but that was it. And so they're not going to think you're rude because chances are they probably didn't notice or forgot about your email. So this is why you want to reach out multiple times because investors have an enormous amount of deal flow coming in. And sometimes it takes time to really stand out. And hopefully eventually you get to a short list that leads to a transaction. Now, I'll quickly go over this so that we can get really to the meat and potatoes of what to do in a partnering campaign. But one of the things that we like to stress is a continuity in messaging. So you'll start off with your tagline and your elevator pitch, and then you're going to have your 2-page executive summary, a 1-page data sheet, and a 10 to 12 slide pitch deck. But the key is to have the same messaging in all three of those because inevitably an investor will generally reach for just one. I love pitch decks. Greg likes the 1-page data sheet. Our CEO loves the executive summary. And inevitably, we always look at just that one. So you want to make sure that all of the information is there in all of that because investors will only look at one. So, Greg, you want to talk a little bit about what to do once you get access to the partnering platform?
Absolutely. So, any conference you sign up for, any partnering conference, and there are a lot of them out there. Resi is one, but there are many others. You will have access to a platform where you can create a profile for your company. And, the first big mistake you can make is not to build a strong profile for your company because any investor will look at that before deciding if they will take a meeting with you. And if your profile is not strong and complete, you will miss out on potential meetings with investors. So be sure to create a strong profile. Take the time to upload your logo, upload a headshot photograph of yourself, put a little bit of background about yourself. So, create a strong profile for both your company and yourself with all of the information that you can include that's relevant that will help investors take an interest in what you're doing. And then, the most important part, and Karen mentioned that we're happy to take a look at your outbound message and give you some tips and tricks, or just some feedback on how you're messaging the investors. But Karen, I would say the most common problem we see in the messaging is that it's incomplete. Wouldn't you say most companies just don't give enough information?
Or so in my experience, it's either not enough information or it's too much information on the technology and not enough on everything else.
That's right, because investors are interested in much more than your technology. Of course, your technology is super important. In the end, that's the key element of your company. But investors are really interested in other things like who are you? What's your background? Who's on your team? Um, what stage of fundraising are you in? Have you had any success with grants, or have you, what's the current stage? And these things are, and also, about the market and the unmet need, of course. So, um, investors are interested in much more than just your technology. If they think that your overall offering is of interest, there will be time to get into more detail about the technology. But like Karen said, I think a common mistake is to only focus on your technology in your messaging when there are other aspects of your company that are extremely important that you need to mention as well.
And I will just reiterate that, the goal here is to make it as easy as possible for an investor to say yes to a meeting. So whatever information that you can put in there, if you can make it clear and concise, that's what the investor wants to see because they want to be able to say right away, is this a fit for me? Is it not a fit for me? And then just say yes, no. Because in most of our events, investors get probably a few hundred meeting requests. They get a lot. And so you want to make sure that you are making it easy on them, as easy as possible. So by giving them this information right off the bat, a lot of times you are just making it easy for them to easily making it easy for them to say fit, not a fit. And then you save yourself time too because you don't have to keep messaging them because you've already gotten an answer.
So we will send this around. There's no need to read this entire message here, but this is an actual partnering message that we've made anonymous, of course, from a company that was successful getting a lot of meetings. And this is a medical device company. The Resi conference really covers all of the verticals of life science. So if you're drugs, devices, diagnostics, digital health, you will have a message to send to investors. And this is just to give you an idea of the kind of information and the kind of the length of the message that this company sent out and was successful getting a lot of meetings.
Yeah,
So we'll send this after the webinar.
yeah, and I actually might even say that I would consider going shorter than this message as well, if you can. So it like I would definitely not go longer than this, as just a note of what I would recommend, in terms of, again, sheer number of messages that investors receive.
The important thing about that message is that in the very first sentence, it's very clear what the technology is. Um, so many companies just don't have not figured out how to describe their technology. And this is what Karen was saying earlier about the importance of developing that tagline that there's just, 5 to 7 words that really describe exactly what it is you do and make it very clear for everybody. So how many meetings should you request, Karen?
As many as are a potential fit for you, which at any of our conferences can be a lot. For example, at our last event at JPM, there were about 850 investors registered from probably 500 to 600 different firms, if not more, which means that any given company should be able to find close to 100 investors who could potentially be a fit for them. And if you have that many, you should be reaching out to that many. And the more you send, not, this is not like an invitation to just spam every single investor that is registered, because it's not just about quantity, it's also about quality. But that being said, making sure that you reach out to every investor that is potentially a fit makes a large difference. So if you can, do so.
Yeah. If you can see here that the companies that got more than 20 meetings with investors, and I imagine any of you, if you go to a partner conference, you would like to have 20 meetings with potential investors, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. All of them sent out over 100 requests. And it's not just the request, it's the follow-up that we're going to discuss now. But if you don't do that, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. One other thing that we frequently see is people start to panic if they don't hear right away. But truth be told, probably about 70 to 80% of the partnering activity happens 1 week before the event. That's when the vast majority of the meetings get booked. So if you're registered for a partnering event and they open their partnering, we generally do it about 3 weeks before the event. And you start sending out your meeting requests immediately and you don't hear back right away, don't panic. It's okay. That's normal. The other thing, though, to keep in mind is that a good number of registered attendees, probably 40% or so, register after partnering opens, which means that another important takeaway from this is, as a company, you can't just do an initial search and think that that's all of the targets. There will be more because investors will register closer to the event. And so the partnering platform, at least ours, is, and others that I'm familiar with, usually have some sort of feature where you can filter by date that they were entered into the system. And so this allows you to continuously monitor who has been added since the last time you did a search. And you want to make sure to do that periodically, because there will be more targets that are relevant that are added that you don't want to miss out on. So, two things to keep in mind when you're attending a partnering event.
You know, and try not to be frustrated at the lack of response that you get. Not just getting meetings booked, but not getting any response at all from so many people that you reach out to. It can be really frustrating, but don't let it frustrate you too much because it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works.
And even at an event like ours, I would say, like we will only see about a 30% response rate, and that's yes or no. So about 70% of the messages that get sent in the system don't end up with responses. And this is true across any conference that you
Any
attend. It's not
conference.
just us. Response rates are that low all over the place. It's just it's to be expected, and it's something that you have to contend with.
So, what do we recommend? And this will really make a difference in terms of getting a response from investors. If you send a single message, which is, by the way, what most companies do, they send one message and that's it, and they wait for a response, wait for a meeting to get booked. And I get it. I mean, if you identify 100 people to reach out to, that's a lot of work to reach out to all of them and send them a message. And that's why, I mean, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's really useful to have somebody help you with this because it's a lot of work for one person to do. And if you're trying to run the company and do a lot of other things, this is really time consuming. And what usually happens is that companies don't put enough effort into the partnering in terms of following up to be successful. And you will miss out on a lot of meetings if you don't follow up. So we're going to talk about what we think is the optimal number of messages to send to each investor when you're at a partnering event and you're going to a partnering event. It starts with an initial meeting request and followed by three follow-up messages. And each of those messages can be slightly different or a lot different and cover different areas of your company that stand out. And this is just an example of what that messaging could look like. But in the end, what you really want to highlight about your company and what you think is going to make a difference when an investor reads it. So you don't have to follow this strictly, but we recommend that you definitely send this many follow-up messages.
Yeah, so we won't read through these messages. But this is these following will be the four messages that this one company sent and was very successful in booking meetings. And again, they saw that the number of meetings booked went up after every follow-up message. And again, it's not a formula. You don't have to highlight what they highlighted. Maybe it's partnerships, maybe it's data, maybe it's, something that's coming up, conversations with strategics, anything like that, whatever it is to highlight. But they started off with one message that was an overview, followed by a second request, which talked more about the market, and the problem that they are solving. That was followed by more talk about the management team because they had a really strong management team. And then at the end, it was just a quick overview. And one of the things to really mention is that it mentioned that it's a final request. It's just a little trick that you can, make it so that they pay more attention because, that fear of missing out can really come into play if they see something about final request to may cause them to pay a little bit more attention.
So your success really depends on how much effort you put in. There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
If you want to get the maximum number of meetings and the maximum benefit out of a conference, and let's face it, going to a conference is expensive. They cost a lot. It costs a lot of money. You have travel expenses, you have hotel, you have dining, and then the actual conference fees. Since you're spending that money and you have to spend it, you have to get out, you have to go to conferences. You can't avoid it. As we said, it's a numbers game. You have to meet as many potential investors as possible. And conferences are a great place to do that. But since you're going, get the most out of it. And, you might need someone to help you with your partnering activities. That's fine. It's recommendable, but you need to follow these steps and be really diligent about reaching out to all of the investors who might be a fit for you, following up a second time, a third time, a fourth time, fourth and final request. Um, if you do that, you really will see a difference in the number of meetings you get.
Yeah, and unfortunately there is no getting around it. It's all about the amount of work that you put into it. Um, and take advantage of it. Really do. It'll make a huge difference. So, you've booked the meetings. What do you do now? How do you maximize your ability to turn that first meeting into a second meeting? Because you've already put in a lot of work into making that first meeting happen. So, how can you make sure that you get another one? So, first you want to make sure to look what have they included in their partnering profile. At LSN, they're never for Resi, they're never empty because we put in profiles from our partnering platform. or from our database. So the partnering platform profiles are never empty. You'll have at least a basic information, but that doesn't mean that you want to stop there. Look at the firm's website. Read about, what their mission is. See if you can see anything about portfolio companies that they've invested in. Read about the person that you're meeting with. Go if they have a firm bio on the website, or go to LinkedIn. Do they have a scientific background? Do they have a financial background? Who are they? Are they interested in particular things? Just really knowing your audience is absolutely critical, because you want to make a good first impression, and part of that comes with knowing who you're talking to. It can help a lot. Now, for the meeting itself, we always recommend that if you can swing it, have two people at the meeting from your company, because, you're going to want to be engaged, you're going to want to be maintaining eye contact, but it's also important to make sure that you're taking notes, and that if there's any specific thing that the investor wants to see, piece of data, like something else that they want to see that you have, you don't want to forget to send it to them. You want to make sure that you are actually following up and giving them what they request, because that otherwise it's a missed opportunity. And they will probably end up remembering, oh, didn't I ask them for that and they didn't give it to me? And that's not a good impression. Now, for most partnering events, meetings are for 30 minutes. And one of the things that a lot of people think is that, they're ready with their slides and they're ready to just go through their slides. We actually recommend not doing that. Have your slides. Have them be there if you want to point out something in particular, or if it helps a specific point that you want to make, but treat it as a conversation. Maintain eye contact, get to know them, make it personal. In our experience, companies that do that have a much, much better result and are more likely to get a second meeting than those that will just run through their deck. That it makes it easier for the investor to just disengage and not pay attention. So you want to make it more interaction on the human level, as opposed to just giving them the information. They can go through your pitch deck without you. They don't need you to do that. They want to get to know you as a person, because investors are investing in people. They're investing in more than just a technology. They have to believe in the team that they're investing in. So as I mentioned, you want to have the backup slides there to answer any questions if it helps. But you also want to make sure to ask the investor questions. And there's a reason that this is important. Because, the goal of all of this, it's not just to make sure that you are a fit for the investor. It's also to make sure that the investor is a fit for you. Because there is nothing that would be worse than friction between the investor and the management team. This can cause a lot of issues. So you want to make sure that this is someone that you're willing to work with for the next few years. It's a long-term close working relationship. So, it may be more than just, is it someone that I can work with? What do you need as a company? Do you just need the money? Do you need connections? Do you need a network of, partnerships that they can give you access to? Is there other information expertise that they have on regulatory reimbursement, something else that you need that they can help with? Because in a lot of instances, for a lot of these investments, it's about more than just the money. And that can make a huge difference for company success. It's also about this expertise. And also, how will the investor type affect the investment? We have another presentation that we do where we go over different types of investors and how they work. How will that affect you not just now, but the next round you need to raise? Is there something in that type of investor or that specific investor and how they work that could make it difficult for you in the future? That's also something that you want to consider, because you don't want that negatively affecting you, not just for this round, but for future rounds. Do they require a board seat? Are there other requirements? So these are all things that you want to consider when you're talking to an investor and considering having them invest in you. Because remember, it's not just about getting the money. It's also about making it viable for you as a long term. And you want to make sure that you can do that, and getting a good investment is part of that. And in some instances, a bad investment is worse than no investment. And this is also why we recommend that companies make sure that when they start their fundraise, they have more than enough time to to fundraise without reaching the end of their runway, because you don't want to reach a point where you're desperate and have to take a deal that comes your way, or you run out of money. The average fundraise takes 9 to 18 months. So you want to make sure that you start your fundraise well enough in advance that you don't end up with your back against the wall, running out of money, and no deal in sight. So just some things to consider when you're talking to investors. Anything you would like to add, Greg?
I think you covered it, Karen. But I think the key takeaway here is that this first investor meeting, the only goal is to get a second meeting. You're not going to reach any agreement or take a check home with you, obviously. It's your first meeting. So, apart from transmitting important information about your company, you also have to establish a relationship and make it personal, make it a dialogue, not just. I think the worst mistake you can make, and a lot of scientist entrepreneurs who don't have business development or sales experience or marketing experience, a common mistake they make is they get to the meeting with the investor and they pop open their laptop and dive right into their presentation that has lots of facts and figures and data and uh, isn't because that's what they're most comfortable talking about. And that's not necessarily what the investor wants from that first meeting. Because as I said, there will be time to go into the technology in depth later on before they invest in your company, and they will for sure. But in this first meeting, they just want to get a feel for what's the company about, what are you about, what's your background, who's on the team with you, what's your plan, what market are you addressing, what unmet need. They want to get a feel for all of that. So make it a dialogue. And like Karen said in this last slide, super important. Ask questions. Take advantage of this opportunity where you're sitting across the table from an investor to learn as much as you can about how they operate. What are they looking for? When are they hoping to exit with the investment they make in you? um, you know, Learn as much as you can about the investor. And it's a great learning experience. And, the
Yeah,
more
and
meetings you have, yeah.
yeah. Well, I also, sorry, Greg, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did want to add that one thing that I actually ended up discussing with someone, an investor that I've known for several years, is that don't one other thing that most companies don't consider when they're taking these meetings is it's not just even about getting a yes, no in terms of if they are willing to invest in you. A lot of times these are also experts in the field take advantage of getting their advice and even framing it as, this is what I'm doing. What would you like to see to make this more attractive as an investment opportunity? Don't just say, will you invest? Yes or no. Say, what can I do? What would you like to see to make you want to invest? And by framing it that way, you can also get a lot of very, very valuable advice. And that's one thing that can end up making a huge difference because you might not realize that investors want to see a small but critical piece of data that you don't have yet that de-risks it in a way that they are then saying, okay, then maybe you can, shift priorities, put resources into that and make it so that you're a lot more appealing. But if you don't ask that question, you might not know that that is what you're missing. Because if you just ask a yes, no question, you'll get the answer, but you won't necessarily be told what is missing.
So any questions or comments? Feel free. We will send you these slides after the webinar, so um, you can reach out to us. The easiest way to reach out to us is at resi@lifesciencenation.com, because then we'll get it to the right person and we'll get back to you. But yeah, I mean these are really important tips to be successful at conferences that you might be planning on attending. I hope you'll come to our Resi Europe conference in Lisbon. It's going to be a great conference and it's a beautiful city to visit. So hope to see you there.
Yeah, and if you think of questions later on, again, reach out to the Resi at Life Science Nation email. We'd be happy to answer. Just let us know. Okay, then.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.